Now, university education is one of those things which is held to be a good thing if you're lucky enough to get it. It is also one of the fields in which Britain is a world leader. But the government has decreed that hundreds of millions of pounds must be cut from the budgets of British universities, a decision which has galvanised opposition not just here but over worldwide academia. In straitened times, what need of professors of Sanskrit? The answer to that question goes to the heart of what universities are for. The clichés are plentiful: high table, port, unworldliness. If it was ever true, it is no longer. King's College London has threatened to sack David Gance, Britain's only professor of paleography, the study of ancient handwriting. Writing on the modern counterpart of the papyrus, Facebook, professors have sprung to his defence. The Harvard psychologist Steven Pinker called the targeting of Gance an act of madness. The linguist Edward Keenan said it would make the King's faculty a laughingstock. As academics from across the world have predicted, researchers will quit British universities for security abroad. Lord Mandelson, who slashed more than £300 million from university funding this year alone, isn't bothered.
It is being resisted simply because people don't like change.
So what's the argument for spending public money subsidising the study of ancient handwriting? Is the function of learning to be functional? Well, joining us now are Dr. Terence Keeley, Vice-Chancellor of the University of Buckingham, the UK's only private university, and Professor Michael Martin from University College London, who's a friend of some of the academics at King's whose jobs are under threat. This is publicly funded work. What possible public benefit is there in knowing about ancient handwriting?
Well, in the specific case of paleography, learning about ancient handwriting is one of the key connections we have with the ancient world. So the traces that remain of ancient texts come to us mainly through medieval transcripts of manuscripts. And it's specialists on those scripts who keep us in touch with the ancient world in that way. This is one of the major links with our history.
Dr. Keeley, what do you make of that argument?
He's of course right. Paleography and the whole study of the ancient world for its own sake is extremely valuable.
So it should be publicly funded?
No. It's very valuable, but just because things are valuable doesn't mean they should be publicly funded. We have a crisis in the universities, and the solution is so blindingly obvious, it's extraordinary that more people haven't been out in the streets screaming. What is outrageous is the way that, not that government funds universities, but then when government funds universities, it takes away their economic freedoms. They're not allowed to set the prices the market will bear. In simple terms, top-up fees should go up.
So you're seeing this as a question of how you fund universities, and at the end of that process, you would end up, would you not, with the sort of course configuration you've got, which is you produce courses and disciplines where you can find a market.
Yes, but there's a huge market for culture. People are very happy to study Latin or Greek. The markets are not Philistine, ironically. It's this government that is Philistine, not the market.
So how would someone like a professor of paleography, how would he make his living? Who would support him?
Well, there are people who want to study Sanskrit, there are people who want to study philosophy, like Mike over here. There are plenty of people who want to study these things, and they will pay for the privilege. It's perfectly reasonable for government to subsidise those things, but not if the price is that universities are not allowed to charge the fees the market would bear.
Are you, as a philosopher, economically viable?
Well, let's compare my role here with my role in the US, where I also teach. No leading philosophy department in the US funds itself through the fees that it charges its students. No department in any arts or humanities school in the US is expected to make a profit through fees or any other research activity. So it's not true in that country, which has the highest funded higher education sector, that it's funded through a market in student fees.
Well, why does an institution in the United States choose to spend money on people like you, or paleographers, or Sanskrit professors, or whatever?
Because they think that education and academic research are public goods. They're things to be treasured and recognised as excellent.
And how do we measure that?
Normally, you look to other experts in the general field and see what is good and what is not.
Some sort of cosy cabal of philosophers all saying, well, my colleague over here is doing vital work.
Well, you could have a cosy cabal. Actually, philosophy is a bizarre little subject in which it now has a big market of people who say who they think is good or not.
Let's say a cosy cabal of Sanskrit professors, each of them justifying the other's existence.
Well, you could have that, I suppose, but the fact is that those who are specialists in Sanskrit happen to be excellent at what they do, and from the outside you can see that they're really expert at what they do. And who else would you trust to see whether what someone was doing in that area was any good other than an expert in that area?
That's a fair enough point, isn't it, Dr. Keeley?
Well, it also happens to be true. Ever since the Royal Society was created by a group of Freemasons, academic life has absolutely been a cabal or a group. People like Thomas Hobbes complained bitterly that the Royal Society was a club from which he was excluded. Academic life is a club, and it's the only way you can maintain standards. But I do want to say one thing about what you said. Markets aren't just about fees. Markets are also about endowments. Harvard has an endowment of 20 billion. And contrary to what you said, I would put it a different way, that your philosophy departments and similar departments in the States are highly supported by the market. It's called the endowment market, which supports culture and philosophy, which is a much better basis than government.
He calls it endowment, but the other word for it is charity. And of course, charitable funding is a good way of funding universities. But so is taxation. In both cases, what you have is that people give money other than just by buying goods.
They have it taken from them by force of law.
By taxation, yes.
OK, well, go on, very quick, you have a quick last word.
I do agree. Taxation is theft. Donations are donations.
All right, chaps, thank you both very much. Thank you.